Hey guys, TekGeekHD here again with another video, and today I have my review of the BlackBerry Priv. Now this is the latest BlackBerry in BlackBerry's lineup, and it's also the first BlackBerry to be running Android. Now while it isn't the latest iteration of Android, BlackBerry does promise an upgrade to Marshmallow coming very soon. Is this the best BlackBerry yet? Let's find out. So I've not always been a very big BlackBerry user, but I have used a couple in the past. In fact, some of those videos were actually some of the most popular on my channel. Let's start with the back. The back has this really interesting carbon fiber-esque material. I actually really like it. A lot of people have asked me whether it's carbon fiber, people at my class and things like that, because it looks like carbon fiber, but it doesn't have the texture. In fact, it's actually a rather grippy texture. It feels really nice in the hand. The phone is insanely easy to grip. It's a very rubberized, tough texture. It doesn't feel smooth or slimy in any way. It just feels really nice in general. It wraps around to the sides, and while it isn't an entirely soft feeling, it does feel really nice and makes the phone easy to grip in the hand. This is important because it actually has a pretty massive Quad HD display. It actually looks really nice in my opinion. I think the colors are really nice and it isn't super saturated, but it does look great to the eye. You can't see any of the pixels on the screen, which is nice. Also, the color representation looks fairly decent. It's a great display for just browsing through things like Instagram and consuming media in general. I really like it. So there's a couple things about this phone that you need to know. It's a BlackBerry, and while it might be the best BlackBerry yet, that doesn't make it an insanely good Android phone, however. One of the interesting things, though, is since it's a BlackBerry, it has this interesting keyboard. It's a vertical slider phone, which is really cool, but the keyboard actually has a touchpad built into it. So you can perform multiple actions like using this screen or using the keyboard to navigate through different screens and scroll vertically. It also comes in very handy when you're typing text, especially because it lets you choose different words and areas. Now, it doesn't let you perform a couple actions, which is kind of strange, like opening up Google Now, which is a very useful part of Android and one of the things that I wish that they had let you do, because I like using my display in the whole display, and that's one of the things that's really nice about the touchpad inside of the keyboard. Now, the phone is actually fairly snappy, it works really well, but one of the things that I absolutely hate about it is the fact that with intensive tasks, and not even things that extensive, if you're using the phone just regular in your day-to-day basis and you have it on for a long period of time, it starts to heat up, and noticeably so. It's not like a little bit of heat. This is a lot. It makes the phone uncomfortable to the touch, and this might just be my phone, but it's insanely annoying. I literally had to put this phone down very quickly just because of how hot it suddenly got. Now let's take a look at the camera. This is actually an area where it's a lot better than a lot of BlackBerries. Now, unfortunately, that's not saying very much, but this is a decent camera. It's an 18 megapixel with a decent lens, and it takes good pictures. When you have a lot of light, the pictures actually look pretty good, but unlike a lot of other phones these days that have pretty good processing, even in low light, the BlackBerry Priv just doesn't manage to get that many decent usable pictures in low light. Now, the camera application is actually quite nice. It lets you manually adjust exposure. You also have access to all of these different filters right in the phone, which I don't really love filters, and I generally like to edit my pictures in applications like ViscoCam and the likes, which is actually really nice because this is now an Android phone, so you can do that. But for people who want them, the filters are there. It's not a super useful feature, it's just something that they threw in. Some of the things that I also like are that you can choose different modes. There's different settings for the camera. Let's move over here to the front-facing camera. This is decent, but this is going to show you guys a good example of what I mean with that manual exposure setting. It actually has this little slider, which even though you tap to focus, you have different focus points, but it still lets you adjust the exposure, which is actually really nice. Now, this is a feature that's also, available on a ton of different phones, including the iPhone, but I actually like the way that it's executed here quite a bit. The thing that I really hate about the camera is that the shutter is actually quite slow. Now, you can't really see it here because it's on the back-facing camera, and the camera is actually facing my desk, which means there's no light coming into the sensor, but you can't take my word for it. Now, if you adjust the exposure a little bit too high, especially in a dark situation, you're definitely going to notice noise in the photographs or introduced into the photos, but it does a fairly decent job of managing them. It's really not very many usable pictures outside of things like maybe Instagram. If you guys would like, you can also record 4K video, and this actually looks alright. It's not the best looking 4K video out of a phone. Phones like the Samsung Galaxy Note 5 definitely produce much better looking video. I think it's really just because of the processing on the device and the ability to handle the videos better. Now, I was saying before, this is another feature that's definitely found on a ton of different phones, and that's the ability to take photographs in different aspect ratios, whether it be a square 1:1, 16:9, or 4:3, which is just the general aspect ratio. Now, the photos look decent. I'm throwing some of them up on the screen right now. They're nothing to be super proud of. If they're going to work just fine for things like social networks and sharing them to Facebook or Instagram or taking a Snapchat or two, but I mean, generally with Snapchat, Android phones don't tend to work very well, but the dynamic range is decent. The photos all around are just decent. That's the best way to describe this camera. It's the best BlackBerry camera, but definitely not the best Android camera out there. Now, of course, BlackBerry does include this physical keyboard down here, which is great. It actually is pretty nice to type on. The only regret that I have with this keyboard, outside of the fact that the keys are really small, is that there's not a lot of place, so there's not a ton of feedback in the keys. They're decent, but the thing is that they're also not spaced out very well. Since this is a vertical slider, you have the keys packed in very close together, more so than other BlackBerries. It's decent to type on once you get a hang of it, and obviously for people who've used BlackBerries and physical keyboards in the past, it's definitely a nice addition. And the thing that I probably like the most about it is the fact that it does have that touchpad included that I'd mentioned before. You guys can see you can swipe from page to page and also up and down vertically inside of web pages. And I think the best addition as part of this is the fact that you can take advantage of that big screen and view all of your content without having a keyboard obstruct it. Now, one of the things that I don't like so much about this is this little addition of the very scattered multitasking menu. Now, BlackBerry hasn't done too much to alter Android. It's kind of like Motorola, where they throw in a couple extra features here and there, and BlackBerry's included a lot, including BlackBerry Hub, BlackBerry Device Search, and BBM, but this is one of those areas that I really didn't think that they managed very well, since it's extremely cluttered. I think another quirk of the BlackBerry is also in the software. Now, if you guys can watch this right here, you can double tap to wake up the screen, but not to put it back to sleep, which I think is really strange. Lower budget phones like the LG G Vista 2 that I reviewed before let you turn it off as well, and I think this is really odd for BlackBerry to have done. You guys can see right here again, I can double tap to wake it, but double tapping to sleep doesn't do anything. I think that's kind of strange. I think the last thing that I'd like to mention is the fact that it has a front-facing speaker. Now, this is a terrible speaker. It's not good at all. There's really no clarity in here. It's very distorted. It doesn't go up very loud either. But the fact is that it's a front-facing speaker, and even though it's a single speaker, at least the audio is coming towards you, and I thought that was an interesting addition. Now, there isn't really very much for me to say about this BlackBerry, besides for the fact that it's the best BlackBerry yet, and I think that really has to do with the fact that it runs Android, which gives it a ton of app support, including lots of Instagram, Snapchat, just basically things that you wouldn't generally find on BBOS, and we haven't really seen in a long time come out of BlackBerry. It's definitely the best BlackBerry yet, but not the best Android phone you can buy on the market today. But if you need that physical keyboard and like BlackBerry, this is definitely the way to go. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.